the first time, and what an amazing place. Kind of overwhelmed.
The first time for you to be at Walt Disney World.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me tell you, I'll ask a couple of questions myself. Most important, what questions from you, the fans out there. If you do have a question, we do have a rope off area right over there. We have a microphone. You can ask your questions to either Peter Mayhew or Iain McCaig. Iain, I just want to start over with you. We were talking a little bit yesterday about your career, and it's quite fascinating to look over all the projects that you have been involved with. Star Trek 4, let's go through the whole list.
All right, well, the first and most important are the Sesame Street cartoons, A, E, and W. W, yes! Yeah, that was a favorite.
Terminator 2.
Terminator 2, we did, when I came in, that was my first job in the film industry, and I did the melting pool scene at the end. I think we'd run out of money, and they said, so what do we do? Do everything!
Hook. Pinocchio.
Right. Worked on a lot of fun films.
What I wanted to ask you is, because you worked so much in science fiction as well as established stories, which is more difficult for you, is to create something like Darth Maul, which hasn't been established before, or is it something like Pinocchio, where it's been established and you have to be...
Well, actually, they have their own requirements. If you're doing justice to a character that already exists, say we were going to do Mickey Mouse, the Phantom Menace episode, Star Wars and Mickey together, you'd have to get... You're all waiting for it. Yeah. You'd have to get into Mickey's skin. You'd have to understand what makes him tick, and the years and generations of work that have been put into him, and then get in and show something new. George had always said that Star Wars was real life with just a little twist, and most design work is that. Getting in there, knowing what it is, and then giving a little twist. But we'll be doing a creature creation thing just before I do the autograph session.
Yes, tell us a little bit about that. That's happening at noon at the crossroads of New York Street and the Commissary Road.
That's right. The easiest way to show what it's like to be a concept designer, which most people don't know what it is, it's basically showing the director what his film looks like before he films it. And a big part of my job is to invent Chewbaccas and to invent Darth Mauls and things like that. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to sit down with some paper, and I will take you through the exact same process I go through every day at my drawing board.
And as for Chewbacca, can you tell us what was your favorite characteristic of Chewbacca?
I think it was a mixture of curiosity. Not being able to talk was wonderful, because you had to use eyes, body language, visions and stuff like this that made it a challenge to do, and it just worked out wonderfully well.
Can you go through some of the mechanics of how Chewbacca worked, how the costume worked?
Well, you've got a mask for a start off, which has got a false mouth. The mouth, the jaw fits over to my own jaw, so as I move and as I roar to make the noises while you're filming, the mouth opens, and there were two little toggles in the back so that Chewie's tongue would actually move. We didn't use it that often because most of the time he had his mouth 3/4 open, so you couldn't use it all the time, but on certain close-ups you can actually use it. But these are the main character of Chewie, which happen to be my own, and I own them, so nobody else can take them. So, no, it was just a character that built itself up over the movies. You think about it, in Star Wars he's quiet. Empire, he gets more involved. He gets totally involved. And then in Jedi, he's just having a ball. Because he needs. And the amazing thing is that nobody, in these three movies, nobody eats. Nobody goes to the restaurant. You think about it, nobody ever goes, and with some of those costumes you couldn't. But the whole concept of Chewie was courage, determination, but a little bit of cowardness thrown in, which makes the character.
The human qualities to it.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and let's get some questions. Where I see we have a number of fans out there with questions. We'll go right down the line.
Yeah. I was wondering if Chewie was going to be in episode 2 or 3.
That I can't answer. I presume he will be. He's got to be if the stories that we hear are correct.
Let me ask a question too. Did anyone see the Wookiees in the Senate?
Yes. So
we like to leave clues.
It means that the Wookiees are around. The Wookiees are around in the galaxy. So whether they will, when they come back is entirely up to a certain gentleman on my left or a certain gentleman living in California. I don't know. I would love to come back and do it, and I know that George through a certain other gentleman has said that if when he does come back, I will be doing it.
Do you want him back?
You've answered your own question.
I'll pass that along.
Okay, let's get the next question over there.
Hi, I was wondering, what was your, how did you come about the character of Jar Jar Binks? Because I can see a bit of Rastafarian in him.
Jar Jar Binks, think of him as a 7-day drawing. On the 5th day, he changed quite dramatically. I came aboard on the 2nd day. He had already been designed for about a year by a young lady named Terrell Whitlatch, and she had done most of the creatures, most of the beasts and things that didn't speak. When I came aboard, there was a room full of creature art. There was a room full of spaceships and planets and things like that, and I wondered what the heck I was going to do. Then I noticed nobody was drawing Anakin or Obi, and they kind of passed it over to me. So anything human, all the costumes by default became mine. And then when there was a character like Jar Jar that spoke but was a creature, Terrell and I tended to play ping pong on that. So she would throw her designs for the character over to me, and I would start to play him out. He was silent up until the 5th day of the drawing. And so we had a Charlie Chaplin character who was so frenetic, but he couldn't get the energy, he couldn't get the words out. Do you remember in the show where he gets his tongue zapped?
Yeah.
And he can't speak and his hand's stuck? That was one of his funniest moments, and like I say, up until the 5th day he was like that. And then I think George likes to play with words. And we have Yoda's speech, we have a lot of the strange names that keep appearing in the films. So Jar Jar Binks became the epitome of that kind of speech. He did it so well that nobody knows what the heck he's saying. He was French-Canadian up until the 6th day. He was Jar Jar Binks. And then at the very end, the gentleman Ahmed Best from Stomp came in and lent his movement and his voice pattern to Jar Jar. And yes, then the ears looked Rastafarian, but they weren't for 6 days.
Now, some of the other concepts you come up with, Darth Maul and Queen Amidala, it seems to some influence of cultural ceremonies or tribal ceremonies. Is this true, like maybe Tibet or Thailand for Queen Amidala?
I've had requests from magazines every part of the world. Japanese Vogue, for example, wrote and said, tell us about the Japanese styles that you copied here for your film. And I had to write back and say, well, I did look at Japan, and there is a lot of kabuki in there, but there's also Mongolian. And if anyone's familiar with Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth of England, she also used that lead white face paint that's so deadly and actually makes people go insane. So what I found is, by doing the research, there were just the same image kept popping up in cultures through all of time and all of history. And I would try and find those things and use those in the designs, and then give it my own, weird little twist.
Okay. We have another question out there.
Hi, my question is, what if George Lucas decides to make episodes 7, 8, and 9? Would your character Chewbacca like to have a girlfriend or get married?
Well, even when George decides to make 7, 8, and 9, Chewie is still young enough, and there are plenty of female Wookiees on our planet that would love to get hold of a Wookiee like that. So, it depends on the storyline, but George is a family man, and therefore Wookiees are going to get married, have kids, to keep the future, keep the race going. Okay?
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions out there.
Is
Jar Jar going to be in any more movies?
And the next question.
Jar Jar is indeed in episode 2, and I just want you all to remember Jack Nicholson was in Little Shop of Horrors as his first film, and he sucked. So, give him a chance.
All right, we have one more question.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a two-part question. Peter, one, how tall are you?
4'6", lying down. 7'3".
And were you in any other movies? Did you play any other characters?
Yeah, my first movie was Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger.
Were you the Minotaur?
I was.
Thanks.
When Ray Harryhausen was using little ones, he had a great bigger one. So that was me.
Gentlemen, thank you again for being here. We're going to do a special ceremony ourselves. We'll place your hands in cement. We will continue our conversation tomorrow. Once again, Peter Mayhew, Iain McCaig. Thank you.